The flames around her, the sky was dark, filled with smoke and red light. The ground cracked under the weight of old machines. And in the center of it all, behind a wall of living fire, she stood, silent, alone, and waiting. Her name was Silka. She was the daughter of the High Empress of the Rythan Empire. And now she was trapped. The fire around her was not normal. It was not made by fuel or machines. It was ancient. It moved like a creature. It breathed. It hunted. It had swallowed every soldier who had tried to rescue her. No one had returned. From the edge of the fire, behind a shield wall, alien soldiers stood in fear. They watched her through glowing screens. They tried sending in drones, armored tanks, even fireproof suits. Nothing worked. The commanders argued in whispers. "We can't reach her. The fire reacts to energy. We need more time." "We don't have time. She has 2 days at most." They thought Silka couldn't hear them, but she could. And she had stopped hoping. And then someone new arrived. He was human. He wore no armor, no helmet, no tools, just simple clothes. His face was calm. His hands were empty. And his eyes, they didn't blink. "Who is he?" one commander asked. "A volunteer," someone said. "A human from the Alliance ship nearby." He asked no questions. "Just walked into camp." The Rythan laughed. "He's mad. He'll die in seconds." But the human said nothing. He stepped forward. The guards tried to stop him, but the fire reacted first. It flared up, high and angry like a wave, ready to crash. Heat poured across the land. The soldiers screamed and fell back. But the human didn't stop. He walked into the fire. Silka gasped. Her heart beat fast. She had seen others try. Brave warriors, old veterans, even a royal knight. They all screamed. They all burned. But this one didn't. The fire licked his arms. It danced around his body. It roared louder than thunder. But he didn't scream. He didn't melt. He didn't run. He kept walking. Step by step, closer to her. The watchers behind the screen went silent. Not even the wind moved. Silka took a step back. The fire should have torn him apart. It should have turned him into dust. But it didn't. It bent around him as if it was afraid. His skin was untouched. His breath was slow, and his eyes never left hers. He reached the inner ring of flame, the final wall that circled her prison. She was shaking, not from fear, but from something else, something deeper. He raised one hand. Slowly, gently, he placed it near the edge of the fire, and for the first time since she was trapped, the fire pulled away. A soft path opened between them. The human stepped forward. Only one step. Silka felt her knees grow weak. She had been strong all her life, trained in battle, raised to rule. But now, in front of this silent figure, she felt like a child. "Who are you?" she whispered. He didn't answer. He just stretched out his hand. Silka stared at it. Heat still shimmered in the air. Her skin was dry, her heart full of doubt. But she took one slow step forward, then another. She reached out. Their fingers touched, and the fire, the ancient living fire that had killed thousands, collapsed. It vanished like mist. The ground cooled. The sky cleared, and for the first time in days she stepped forward, free. She fell into his arms. The soldiers watching from outside couldn't believe it. Some dropped their weapons. Others bowed in silence. A commander said, "What? Is he?" No one answered. The human looked up at the sky, and far above, something deep and old whispered through the winds. "One has returned. The girl who could not be saved. They carried her body like she weighed nothing." But Silka was not weak. Not before. Not in the days before the fire. She had been a warrior princess, trained in swordplay since childhood, a leader by blood, a fighter by nature. People loved her. Her enemies feared her. And yet, this fire, this silence, had broken her in ways nothing else ever had. Her skin was burned in some places, cold in others. The strange flames had fed on her strength. Her voice was dry, her lips cracked. But her mind was awake. She felt his arms, strong, warm, human, and that word echoed in her head. Human. How could this be? Her people had fought many species. Some were cruel, others were wise. But the humans, the Rythan had called them simple, fragile, barely evolved, and yet one had walked through a storm no Rythan had survived. The oldest flame field in their system, a defense built 10,000 years ago. It had melted tanks, devoured generals. It had almost taken her life. But he walked through it like it was nothing. As he stepped beyond the last border of the fire zone, the ground shifted. No one saw it, but Silka felt it. Something deep under the surface moved. Something that had been watching. The human didn't look back. He kept walking with her in his arms through silent canyons and broken roads until he reached the Rythan command camp. Weapons aimed at him instantly. Red lasers targeted his chest, his legs, his head. "Drop her!" someone shouted. He didn't move. Another voice. "He's infected. Check his blood." Silka raised her weak hand. "No," she whispered. "He's not infected. He saved me." The guards looked at each other. No one knew what to do. Finally, the commander stepped forward. He was a tall Rythan, armored from head to toe. His voice was sharp. "Human, who gave you permission to enter the restricted zone?" Still no answer. "What is your name?" Silence. "What are you?" That's when the fire sensors around the camp began to glitch. Alarms rang. Lights blinked. The flames that once surrounded the field were moving again, but they were not growing. They were following, not in rage, not in violence. They moved like waves after a boat, as if something inside them wanted to follow the human. One Rythan scientist looked at the readings and whispered, "They're obeying him." The commander's eyes narrowed. "Take him to the ship, lock him down. I want scans, I want blood, find out what he is." "No," Silka said, trying to stand. "He's not your prisoner." "With respect, Princess," the commander replied coldly, "we don't know what he is. And he walked through a forbidden weapon that predates our empire. This is bigger than you or me." The human gently placed Silka down on a healing bench and stepped back. He looked at the guards, and then he raised his hand, not in surrender, not in threat, but in calm. Every laser, every scanner, every machine aimed at him. Short-circuited. The power grid flickered. Lights went out. Sparks flew from towers. The air filled with the smell of burning circuits. He didn't move. No words. Just presence. The camp fell into darkness. Silka sat up. Her voice was low but full of fire. "Don't touch him." The commander hesitated. And then, beneath their feet, the ground shook. Only once, but deep. Like a giant heart beating under the land. Scientists ran to their stations. "That wasn't seismic activity," one said. "That came from the ancient core." "What core?" the commander shouted, but the scientist was pale. "The fire barrier. It wasn't just a prison, it was a seal." Silka turned to the human. "You knew this." He finally spoke. His voice was quiet, like stone on stone, but each word struck like thunder. "Something sleeps beneath your empire, and I came to see if you were ready." "Ready for what?" the commander asked. The human looked at Silka, only her, to wake it. The silent path, the land was silent but not still. A soft tremble ran under the soldiers' boots. It wasn't an earthquake. It was too slow. Too deep. Like something old. Breathing. Silka sat beside the human, still wrapped in the thermal cloak they had given her. Her body was weak, but her eyes were clear now. And they never left him. He sat alone by the edge of the cliff near the old canyon wall. He hadn't moved in hours. He hadn't spoken since his last words. Words that left the entire camp afraid to speak. To wake it. No one understood what he meant. But Silka, she was starting to. The Rythan scientists whispered among themselves. The fire field was more than a trap. It's part of the old system, older than the Empire. The energy patterns around him match the ancient ruins. He's connected to it somehow. The commander wasn't interested in science. He was watching, the human like a hawk. If he tries anything, shoot him, he ordered. If we can't kill him, bury him. But no one stepped forward. Not one soldier volunteered. At night, the sky above turned black-blue with falling ash. Fires still burned across the mountains, but they stayed away from the camp. The fire seemed calmer now, like it was watching, waiting. Silka couldn't sleep. She left her tent quietly and walked toward the human. He was still sitting, staring at the canyon floor below. "You haven't said anything," she said softly. He didn't look at her. "Why did the fire obey you?" she asked. "Because I am one of them." She blinked. "One of what?" He turned finally, and for the first time, she saw something different in his eyes. Not heat, not cold, but memory. "Long ago," he said. "Before your empire, before your cities, there were keepers, beings who walked with the fire. They were not rulers. They were not gods. They were watchers," Silka whispered. "And you are one of them?" He didn't answer directly. "Your ancestors made a promise," he said, "to protect the seal, to never touch the core beneath the world. And then, they forgot." She felt her heart race. "What is under the world?" she asked. His answer was slow. "Something your people tried to erase." Far below the surface, machines began to blink to life. Machines that hadn't moved in thousands of years. They sent signals. The ground pulsed, and in the canyons to the east, lights appeared, in strange patterns, like eyes. The commander finally lost patience. "I want him gone," he shouted. "Take a strike team, push him out, shoot if you must." 5 elite Rythan soldiers moved toward the humans' campfire with energy rifles. They wore heat armor, heavy gear. No mistakes this time. Silka ran. "To stop them, don't!" she shouted. "You don't know what you're doing." But they didn't listen. The first soldier raised his gun. "Stand down, human." The human stood, and the air changed. Not with sound, not with wind, with weight. The sky above bent slightly. The stars shimmered. The fire around the camp rose up, not in anger, but in defense. A shape formed behind him, a shadow of light. Not a weapon, not a machine, something alive. The soldiers froze. One of them dropped his rifle and fell to his knees. "He's not just human." The fire whispered through the air. "The path is open." The ground cracked open near the canyon wall. A staircase revealed itself, carved into stone, lit by red crystal veins. Old writings shimmered on each step. The human looked at Silka. "Walk with me. See what your people have forgotten." Without thinking, she followed. The fire didn't burn her now. It lit her path. They walked down into the earth together. Each step was heavier, each breath harder, not from fear, but from memory. Her blood remembered this place, even though she had never seen it. They reached a chamber, a giant room filled with circles of flame, floating books, and machines that looked like statues. The fire moved along the walls, revealing stories. On one side, a woman with her hand on fire, smiling. On the other, cities burning under black skies. "What is this?" Silka whispered. "A choice," the human replied. "Your ancestors were given fire, to heal or to destroy. They chose wrongly. And now? Now you must choose again. The warning under the earth." The door closed behind them with a deep sound, like stone grinding against time. Silka turned back, but the path was gone. The stairway had vanished into the wall. There was no escape now, only the chamber, the flames, and the human beside her. He walked slowly, touching nothing, but the fire lit up wherever he stepped. They stood in a room unlike any she had ever seen. Walls of black metal curved high above them. Floating orbs spun slowly in the air, glowing with red light. The floor was made of glass, and beneath it, Silka saw rivers of fire flowing through long, pulsing tunnels, like veins under the earth. But it wasn't just the room. It was alive. She could feel it breathing. Watching. "Where are we?" she whispered. "The cradle," the human replied. "The first vault built before your world knew war, before empires, before lies." Silka stepped closer to one of the floating orbs. Inside it, she saw images flashing, memories, dreams, warnings, children running through fire, skies turning black, oceans boiling. "This was real?" she asked. The human nodded. "The first great burn, your ancestors barely survived it. They sealed the cause below the world and swore no one would ever awaken it. But what did they seal?" The human turned and pointed to the far end of the chamber, where a great door stood. It was wide and round, made from old stone and molten gold. Glowing symbols covered its surface, some still shifting as if the door itself was thinking. Behind it, something moved, something huge. Silka took a step back. Her skin went cold. "What's behind there?" she asked. He answered quietly. "Something that remembers us. Something that was never meant to wake." Above them, in the Rythan camp, alarms screamed. One of the command screens exploded. Sensors blacked out. Radar turned into static. The commander shouted for updates, but no one had answers. "Seismic activity is growing," one tech officer yelled. "There's a new heat source." "It's not coming from outside. It's coming from under us." Deep below, Silka pressed her hand on the old stone wall. She could feel a heartbeat. "You said this fire wasn't made by weapons," she said. "Then what is it?" The human looked at her carefully. "It's a memory, a warning. Fire is a test. It shows what you are on the inside." She looked at her own hands, burned, scarred, but still strong. "Then what did it see in me?" she asked. "Hope," he said. "Or it would have consumed you." They reached the great door. And then, without touching anything, the door opened. No sound. No blast. Just silence. A long hallway stretched beyond it, leading into blackness. Walls glowed with soft red lines. Every few steps, ancient machines stood like statues, their eyes dark. They entered. As they passed, the machines began to awaken. Eyes blinked, hands moved, but they didn't attack. They stepped aside. They let the human pass. Silka watched in awe. "They know you." "They know. My kind," he said. "But I'm the last." She paused. "What happened to the others?" His face turned cold. "They failed." The hallway ended in a chamber even larger than the one before. In its center stood a structure, part throne, part cocoon, part prison, and inside it, a shape. Vague. Shifting. Not fully real. Not yet. But it opened its eyes. Silka fell to her knees. The pressure in the room became unbearable, like gravity was pressing down on her soul. The human stood firm. The shape inside the cocoon looked at him and spoke in a voice that was not sound. It was thought. "Why have you broken the seal?" "To see if they remember," he answered. "They forgot. They always forget. Not all of them." The shape turned its gaze to Silka. Her mind screamed. Every part of her felt exposed, as if her past, her fears, her memories were being read. But then something strange happened. The pressure faded. The shape spoke again, softer this time. "She is different." "Yes," the human said. "She passed the fire." "But will she pass the choice?" Silka stood up, shaking. "What choice?" The shape's voice filled the chamber. "This world was given fire. It was meant to heal. They used it for war. They built weapons. They broke the promise. the human added. Now the fire must decide. Will it burn this world clean? Or will it give one last chance? Silka stared at them both. And you want me to decide? No, the human said. You were chosen by the fire itself. Above, the skies turned dark. From the core of the planet, a soft red light rose up, visible even from orbit. In the command center, the Rythan Emperor appeared on the screen. What is happening down there? He demanded. No one could answer, except Silka Cliffhanger. She stepped forward, placed her hand on the cocoon, and whispered, Then I choose to remember. The machine opened. The shape inside took form, and the world trembled. The fire that remembers, the cocoon split open without sound. No scream, no explosion, just light, deep red, soft gold, and something else, something alive. The shape inside stepped forward slowly. It wasn't a beast. It wasn't a god. It was remembrance given form. A tall figure made of shifting fire and broken stars. Its body glowed with old light, and its face had no eyes, no mouth. Only a mask of glowing lines, like a forgotten language written across the skin. Silka couldn't move, her knees locked. Her heart stopped for one long second. The air around her changed. It felt like standing on the edge of the sun, yet her body did not burn. The fire being looked at her. And then, it bowed. She remembers. It whispered. The human stepped beside her, calm and steady. His eyes met the fire beings, and without words they shared a memory. Not just one, but many. Wars that no one wrote down. Promises that were broken before history began. The first time fire was given, and the first time it was used to destroy. Above the earth, a Rythan fleet hovered in orbit. Hundreds of warships, all armed, all watching. The Emperor stood at the center of his flagship, staring at the readings on the screen. What is that energy signature? He asked. A tech officer stammered. We've never seen this before. Is it a weapon? We don't. No. He narrowed his eyes. Then prepare the fleet. I won't let an old myth decide the fate of my empire. He pressed a single button. Target the signal. Fire at will. Below in the chamber, Silka gasped. The walls around her glowed brighter. Lines of fire curved upward, forming symbols she didn't know, but somehow understood. They're coming, she said. The human closed his eyes. The fire being looked up. They still choose fear. Then, without moving a finger, the fire being raised its head and the air around the planet responded. The skies turned red, not from heat, from memory. As the Rythan warships fired, their beams vanished mid-air, not blocked, not deflected, absorbed. The energy turned into golden strands and returned, gentle at first, then stronger. Ships began to shake. Not from attack, but from remorse. The fire didn't want to destroy them, it wanted them to see. Inside the ships, soldiers screamed as visions filled their minds. They saw the past, cities burning, children hiding under ash, a man standing alone in fire, trying to stop it all. They saw the moment their ancestors chose to forget. On the ground, Silka cried out. The fire was in her now, not burning, not hurting, showing. She saw the same memories, how the Rythan had found the gift of flame and twisted it, how they sealed away the fire being, calling it a threat because it told the truth. She turned to the human. Why now? Why come back? His voice was quiet. Because for the first time in 10,000 years, one of your kind passed the fire without fear. One of you listened. She looked down at her hands. They were glowing. What's happening to me? You're being chosen. Back, in orbit, half the fleet shut down. Ships powered off. Lights died. Captains collapsed. Some were weeping. Others were just silent. Only the Emperor's ship remained active. His face was twisted in rage. Fire everything again, he screamed. I don't care what it is, destroy it. But when they fired this time, the energy turned back into light mid-air and wrapped around the Emperor's ship like vines of flame. His ship didn't explode. It disappeared. Gone. Not dead, not broken, removed, like a lie wiped clean. The human turned to Silka and pointed toward the surface. You must go. Now. Your people will look to you. But what about you? She asked. He smiled. I will stay. The fire is my path, the fire being stepped back into the cocoon. The light began to dim. But what do I tell them? Silka asked. The chamber echoed with the fire being's last words. Tell them the fire forgives. Once. Silka was lifted by flame, carried gently upward, through the earth, through stone, through sky. She emerged just beyond the writhen base. Soldiers ran to her. Generals shouted. Scientists dropped their tools. Cameras turned, and Silka, still glowing with golden heat, walked into the center of them all. She didn't scream. She didn't beg. She simply said, I saw the fire, and it remembers everything. The oath she took. They gathered in silence, across the writhen capital, across border worlds, across frozen moons and desert colonies. Every screen, every broadcast, every ship was tuned to one signal. A girl walking through fire. A girl who returned from the Deadlands glowing like a sun. A girl who once was a princess, and now stood as something more. Silka stood at the center of the great chamber in Zareth Prime, the heart of the writhen empire. The walls were carved from stone older than memory, wrapped in symbols that had lost meaning to time. Now they glowed again. As she entered, the fire followed her, not burning, but lighting her path. A council of elders sat around her, some old, enough to remember war, others too young to understand fear. But all of them stared at her like she was something they had never seen before. Because she was, a general stood up first, his armor scratched, his voice sharp. You claim you were chosen by fire, that you saw an ancient being beneath the world. I don't claim it, Silka said softly. I carry it. She raised her hand, and a flame, calm, golden, and warm, rose above her palm. No fuel, no tech, just fire that listened. Gasps filled the chamber. One elder fainted. Another dropped his cup. But Silka was not done. You burned our ships, another voice accused. You wiped our emperor's vessel from the sky. Silka turned to the crowd. I did not burn anything, she said. The fire did, because it remembers the promise we broke. She stepped forward. Long ago we were given a gift. Not to control, not to weaponize, but to heal. And what did we do? She turned slowly, looking at each one of them. We turned fire into war, into power. We built cities that burned our forests. We created weapons that swallowed planets. We forgot what the fire was meant to be. A young counselor leaned forward, eyes wide. Then why did it choose you? Silka's voice trembled, but only with truth. Because I listened. Outside, across planets and fleets, her words echoed. Soldiers lowered their weapons. Priests lit candles. Even pirates paused, watching the flames through their viewports as if waiting for judgment. Then the question came, the one no one dared to ask until now. What do you plan to do? Silka breathed in. The fire around her dimmed. I will not rule. I will not command. I will not conquer. She looked to the stars above. I will remember. The council fell silent, but something was changing. Beyond politics, beyond tradition. New energy sensors across the empire picked up unknown signals. Old machines turned on by themselves. On abandoned moons, fire glyphs carved into stone glowed for the first time in centuries, and deep below the surface of ancient worlds, long dead vaults stirred. The fire was spreading, not in destruction, but in awakening. In the days that followed, the Fire Council was formed. Keepers chosen not by birth or title, but by truth. Each one had to pass the trial of fire. Not by strength, not by intelligence, but by heart. Some never returned. Others walked out changed. Those who were chosen did not speak of what they saw, but they all carried the mark. Eyes that glowed for one moment when they spoke truth. And Silka, though never crowned, became something more than empress. They called her the Ember Voice, the one who walked with flame and lived, the one who was once lost and now lit the path for others. But not all were pleased. In the outer rings of the empire, whispers grew, remnants of the old rule, hidden weapons, scientists who still craved the power once sealed. They had seen the fire forgive, but they did not want to be forgiven. They wanted revenge. In a black chamber on a moon without a name, a group of them gathered. "She's weakened us," one growled. "We had fleets, we had fear, now people look to fire instead of law." "The fire being sleeps again," another hissed, "and the human, gone." They raised a device, small, cold, ancient, something stolen from the deep core before the chamber sealed. "We found a spark," they said. "A weapon the fire left behind." They would not wait for peace. They would light a darker fire. The man who left no name. The flame in the bowl flickered again. This time, it turned blue. Silka stepped closer. Her breath caught in her chest. The blue fire meant one thing. The Watchers were waking, and he was returning. The human who had walked through fire. The man who never gave his name. The one who vanished after unlocking the vault. And now, something darker was following him. Across the stars, in the forgotten systems of the outer rings, cities began to die. Not by heat, but by silence. Entire colonies went dark. Machines froze mid-motion. Children stopped speaking. The stars above blinked out one by one, and deep in the cold ground of a broken moon, the dark fire began to rise. It was not gold, not red, not light. It was hollow. A fire that consumed not just flesh, but memory. The fire of those who hated truth and feared forgiveness. They called it Ashmond, and it had waited a long time to be free. In a hidden lab, the rebels stood around a glowing cage. Inside it floated a single coal, black, cracked, whispering. "We took it before the chamber sealed," one said, "a piece of the fire being." But they were wrong. It was not a piece of the fire being. It was a wound he left behind, a piece of sorrow. And now, it wanted revenge. Silka stood before her council. "It's spreading," she said. "This is not like before. This is not fire. It's the opposite of fire. No warmth, no light, just emptiness." The others nodded in fear. But one asked, "How do we stop something like that?" Silka turned toward the open sky. "We call him back." On a desert world beyond any map, the human stood at the edge of a canyon made of crystal. His eyes were closed. He had walked far. He had healed worlds. And now he felt the darkness rise. He opened his eyes slowly. The wind carried a voice. Her voice. Silka. And, with one step, he vanished into flame. He returned not in ships, not in light. He returned walking, through the dust, through the storm, straight into the empire once more. His body was still, his face calm. But something in his eyes had changed. Silka met him outside the citadel. "You came," she said. He looked at her, long and soft. I felt the silence. They stood together as the last light blinked out from the outer system. The darkness had arrived. Ashmind took shape. Not a beast, not a man, not a god. Just a voice that whispered in every corner of space. "Truth is pain. Burn it away." Soldiers tried to fight. Weapons failed, cities screamed, and then the human stepped forward. "This is my fault," he said. Silka shook her head. "No, you gave us light." "And in my silence," he said, "the darkness learned to speak." He turned. "To the council, to the army, to the firekeepers, this cannot be burned, it must be remembered." He took one step forward into the sky and rose, not with machines but with memory. A giant flame lit the stars. Not red, not gold, but white. Pure. Every soul who had seen truth felt it. Every lie melted. Ashmind roared, screaming, trying to drown the light, But the human reached into himself, into the fire, into the name he had forgotten, and gave it all. A single word echoed through every mind. Remember. Ash mind shattered, not in a blast, in silence, forgotten forever, like a lie exposed. When it ended, he fell, not burned, not broken, just gone. His body turned to embers. And those embers flew to different worlds, planting seeds of fire in the hearts of those who still listened. Silka stood at the edge of the sky, her eyes full of tears and fire. The people gathered. No crown on her head, no throne behind her. Only the words. She left them with, "He had no name." Because he was not one man. He was all of us when we choose truth over fear. And on a quiet world far away, a boy lit a candle. The flame danced, and for a moment it smiled.